and welcome to the Whole Wellness Mamas Summit, where we are unlocking the healthiest, joy-filled mom in you using strategies from various wellness and parenting experts. I'm Amy Nesbitt, and I'm excited to be discussing how to childproof our marriage with Michelle Purta. Those that were here last year for the summit have seen her before, the amazing Michelle. She's a married mom of three, marriage coach for moms and parents, and host of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. And like most people, she didn't grow up learning how to become successful in relationships and struggled with communicating and connecting. But after feeling frustrated and over experiencing the same issues over and over, she started to realize that being happily married was a skill. Hurrah! I think that's a good news for all of us. And now she works with moms and couples out there who desire healthier communication that transforms conflict into connection and to reignite that spark so they feel like a couple rather than just co-parenting roommates. She does this by helping them deeply understand themselves better, communicate as partners, and become intentional about the relationship they're building so they can have a lifetime of love, joy, and passion together. So great to have you again, Michelle.
Thanks for having me, Amy. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's so great to have you. We have, or a lot of us have met you before, but for those that have not, can you share your story of how you came to where you are?
Yeah, so I would say that my biggest personal transformation, right? I was not good at relationships, okay? So I'm not like coming into this because I've been a pro since the very start. Very much the opposite. I have had to do the things that I now help my clients do to get to the place where I have a really strong, healthy, fulfilling, enjoyable, deep, loving, all of the good adjectives of a marriage. Okay. So I did not get modeled what it meant and what it looked like and what it took to have a healthy marriage. Communication wasn't there between my parents, partnership wasn't there, and a general lack of self awareness also wasn't there. And so when we're not modeled things, how do we know what to do ourselves in our relationships? And so I kind of just took what I learned over the years as I was growing up and took bits and pieces of what I wanted to copy, or maybe I didn't know I was copying it, and what I absolutely did not want to do, and swung the opposite direction. So, one of those examples is my mom does a silent treatment. She gets really overwhelmed by emotions. She goes, hides in her room, and she comes out like nothing happened, right? I did not see that being very effective. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to let my partners know when I'm upset, how I feel, what I think they did wrong, thinking that that was going to be better. But it wasn't. What I failed to realize was that just because you're talking doesn't mean you're communicating. I was talking at my partners rather than talking with my partners. And so I was lacking that tact and strategy for effective communication to take place. And I realized this a little too late after several relationships later, realizing, wow, how can I keep running into the same problems in every single relationship? Why do we keep arguing so often? More than what it seems like other more than what I see happy couples do. What is wrong with us? And so only once when I realized, oh, I am phenomenal, did I start to turn inwards, do that work on myself to become a stronger communicator, to bring up that self-awareness piece in myself, the results. But then I entered a relationship where my husband, well, my then boyfriend, had a son. When you have a partnership while you're also playing parent,
Mm.
that complicates a lot of stuff. The focus is not about, hey, what are we going to eat for dinner? When's our next date? Literally everything you're doing when you don't have kids is a date. And you don't realize that. But then when kids enter the picture, all of a sudden you get tunnel vision and you're only focused on caring for the child and you don't realize how exhausting it is. And so a lot of couples aren't having those necessary conversations prior to having kids, thinking, oh, we're on solid ground. Let's have kids because we love each other. We want to grow our family. And then you don't have the capacity for the stuff that you did deal with before. So you start to resent each other more. You start to have communication breakdowns a lot more often. You start snapping at each other, and all these issues come up where you didn't know you would be faced with these choices that you have to make, or differences in how you see how parenting works or how you run a household with kids. And so I deeply want to help bridge that gap of, oh, we have some things that we need to work on. Things aren't okay. And letting people know, hey, yeah, totally normal and healthy for you to experience conflict in your relationship because conflict is inevitable, but arguing is optional. And so, by learning the skills on how to become a more effective communicator, you can then start to see, oh, now I know how to navigate conflict. Now I know how to bring up issues or respond to issues without it spiraling out of control, turning it into an even bigger fight where you end up not even talking about what you originally were trying to talk about. And now it's not competing with each other about who's more angry or who did more, or who's more tired, and things that really aren't, the meat of the issue. And so I want to help couples learn those skills, build that strong foundation so that they can enjoy being married again, no matter what stage of parenthood they're in.
Oh, so many people are probably like, "She's in my head." Right? And,
Because I've done it all, I've
Yeah.
experienced it all.
Yeah. So, let's talk about, like, becoming parents and how that changes our relationship, because I think a lot of people can resonate with this. Okay, yes, we were in love, we were ready to have kids, and then we just realized we became more like roommates over the course of time, even though that's not what we were planning to do, right? We all think we're going to be different parents than we end up being. And it's this reconciliation of ourselves as parents, as well as what does our relationship look like now that we are parents. And oftentimes the kid or the kids, depending on how many, become the center of the lives of everything of the household. So you're nodding your head. You've heard that a lot, I assume. So start
Definitely.
there.
Yeah, so I think the biggest mistake that we make is we put our children above our marriage, forgetting that the children came because of the marriage, right? Like that is the foundation that your kids are sitting on. The family was developed with the two of you. But once the kids come along, we biologically have this like need and desire and motivation to just make sure that they have the best life possible. And we often forget about our own needs and that our marriage needs to continue being nurtured for it to be successful. It is a living thing. It's not something that we can just put on the back burner as if it's like that fake fiddle plant. It's like so popular right now, right? It's not a fake plant that you can just be like, okay, in 10 years, when our kids are more independent, then I'll get back to you. Then you're going to be a real thing again. No, you cannot do that. If you had a friend who neglected you, was not there for you, did not actually, contribute to the relationship, would you continue being their friend? The answer is no. So your marriage is even deeper than a friendship. And if we can't even do that basic level of relationship maintenance, then it's no surprise that we turn into this couple that has this resentment towards each other because you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard, you don't feel supported, you don't feel wanted. So, yeah, it's gonna break down. And so, the biggest mistake is not putting your marriage above your kids. And I think a lot of parents struggle with this, especially parents who maybe have a rocky relationship in their marriage right now. They're like, well, why would I put my husband or my wife above my kids? That makes no sense. What I mean by this is not, hey, neglect your kids. Your marriage is everything. That is not what I mean, okay? You're going to get CPS calls on you.
Yeah.
What I mean is you need to keep your marriage in mind with all the decisions that you make. So often, once we have kids, right, we don't transition out of the baby phase, okay? So, yeah, It is normal and healthy for you to nurture your baby, to tend to its needs, because it literally cannot fend for itself, right? You have to feed them, you have to change them, you have to help them learn how to sleep, all the things. And you see your partner and you're like, okay, you're an adult, you got it, right? Because we're like in survival mode. But as kids age, we then continue to come up with excuses about why we cannot nurture the marriage, right? When they get older, you're like, oh, they need help with their homework. Oh, they have all these extracurriculars. Oh, this and that. We fill in the space as if it was free this entire time, but really, it was time that was borrowed. And we forget to incorporate our marriage as a necessity, something that is a staple, a given, a permanent slot in our schedule. And so, yeah, if you don't hang out with each other, it's gonna be awkward. It's gonna get to the point where you're more like roommates and you're just running a business of raising kids and owning a house together or living together, right? So, yeah, you've got to keep your marriage in mind with all decisions you make, even getting so granular as your schedule, the commitments that you say yes to, what you say no to, right? Because everything you say yes to is a no to something else. So, if you find yourself saying, I'm too tired tonight to hang out, let's try another night. But another night is never getting here, like that day just never comes, then there's something very wrong about how you're doing life right now as a family. Because if you can't make time for your marriage, you're saying through your actions that you are not committed to it being a sustainable, everlasting relationship that you desire, that you want. When you're gray and old, you're gonna like, who's there? Who's there? So if your vision for yourself is, oh, I want to be those grandparents who still flirt with each other and frolic around the city and go traveling and visit the grandkids and whatever, what do you need to do today to make that happen? And I'm not saying you need to burn yourself out and drain yourself and say, okay, everything goes before me, the kids, my husband, and I don't have time for myself. No, what I mean is be honest with your capacity. Be willing to say no to things. What is truly important to you right now? Are your actions, your schedule, your choices reflecting that? That's what I mean by putting your marriage above your kids. And side note, you should come before your marriage. Okay, so the hierarchy is you, because if you're not doing well, everything else is going to suck. And then your marriage, because if your marriage isn't doing well, everything else is going to suck. And then your kids. Okay, so that's the hierarchy.
So we've kind of talked about like how do we prevent it? It's this mindset, right? And figuring out what this looks like, scheduling, what's at the root of it. But for those out there going, shoot, I'm already there. Like, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this funk? I've tried to talk about it with my partner, but they don't really see anything wrong with it. We're fine with where we're at. How do I broach this topic? Where do we start?
Well, first of all, it really depends on how you're broaching the topic. A lot of women tend to broach it like, how come you haven't done this for me lately? How come we haven't gone on a date lately? You said you're going to plan the next date. When's that going to
You
happen?
blame. Hmm.
You blame.
Yeah, I hear it.
What if instead you didn't go that route and you're like, hey, you know what? I really miss doing these things with you. What do you think about, setting up some childcare for this day and going out and doing that? Which one sounds better to you? Which one are you more inspired and motivated to do? If someone's
Actually,
complaining about something you're not doing, you're probably going to get defensive and not want to do the thing, right? Unless there's a like select few, they're like, oh, I feel guilty. Okay, you're right. We totally should. Okay. But some people don't operate that way.
yeah.
Some people are like, are you serious right now? Why would I want to hang out with you if this is how you talk to me? I don't want to hang out with that. Like you could take your attitude and take it to another room, right?
Yeah.
But if you're saying, "Hey, I really want to hang out with you." Like, remember back then when we used to go play arcades together and we felt so carefree? That'd be so fun to do that again. Would you want to go do that with me? Like, what if we were able to make some childcare work and we just like spend a couple hours doing that? Is that something you're interested in doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
that is.
I think I've had several conversations which just broke my heart where, someone told me, "I don't remember the last time we had fun together." I was
That's
like,
sad.
"Oh," but there's acknowledgement, there is realization there, and it's not too late. You can still go and figure out where to go because it's probably not just one-sided, in that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there are some times where one partner is content with how things are because of their examples,
Mhm,
right? Maybe their parents live completely separate lives, and that's their norm. And that's when you have to have conversations about what you want for your family and what you want for your marriage and paint that vision so you guys can align with each other on what it is that you're actually working towards, right? Because we can always continue to just run on the hamster wheel and get nowhere. But when you have a clear vision, then you have some direction. Then you know why you're doing what you're doing. You have purpose.
mhm.
So if you have that dream of what I painted earlier, of being an old couple, maybe like that. Have you seen that car where it's like this old couple where the wife is like pinching the man's butt? It's like so it it's so flirty, it's so playful, and don't we all want that for ourselves when we're older, right? Not be like, oh, we're old, we can't do that stuff. We have to be super
Yeah.
serious and what inappropriate, whatever, right? But in order to get to that place, we've got to work on it now. It's not like, oh, we're 70, we're going to be that couple. It's like, but did we pay our dues?
Yeah. And what does it show our kids, right? I feel
Exactly.
that's what I think about a lot of you mentioned at the beginning of modeling and how what we have seen. And of course, no marriage is going to be perfect, but for them to see that we are putting each other first, right? And that it's not just about kids, kids, kids. That was kind of something we actually talked about fairly early on. I can't remember if it was before kids or after, but we had said we don't want to tiptoe around the house because, we can't do this or that after a certain time. It just kind of worked out that we didn't have super sensitive kids. I know it's not a reality for everyone for various reasons, right? And um so I don't want to discredit anyone, for any specific reason, but that was a conscious thing that we said we still want to go out to eat. We enjoy doing that. We want to do these things and not just shell up at home because we became parents, And that was a conscious thing that we had for ourselves and talking about that and having that expectation and being aligned with that like you were mentioning earlier too, I think is a huge thing um that we can demonstrate for our kids. And I
Yeah,
do
and
one
who's to say that once you have kids, your life has to look a certain way, right? I think we look too much into media and people who came before us to dictate and define what life is supposed to look like. But you know what? There are parents who don't do all kinds of things. There are parents who live in a van who drive all over the world, like, or not the world because you can't drive in the ocean, but like who drive across the country and like unschool their kids. And then there's parents who, do the traditional route or homeschool, whatever it is. So don't look to other people to approve of what you're doing, as long as you and your spouse are aligned, who cares, right? You're the one that's going to be living it. You're the one that's going to look back and either feel immensely proud and satisfied or filled with regret, right? And what better example can you set than to truly go after what you want for your life and demonstrate to your kids, hey, what really matters is what you and your spouse want. Not anybody else, not me as your parent, but you. Our individual and marital vision is what matters.
Yeah, because the balance too, right, is what strikes me in what we're talking about. Because when you were saying, put yourself, put your marriage, put the kids, and I love this. Like, I love doing one on one time with my kids, but that also applies to my partnership too, my spouse too. Like, we need that one on one time too. It doesn't matter if it's like a long hug every day, or we watch a show together, or like we could go on a date together somewhere. It could be as small or as big as we want. And I need that one-on-one time for myself too. Like, all of it applies. And like I was saying earlier, I think it demonstrates to the kids that we all need time for different things, and they're important to me. My husband is important to me. I am important to me. And being able to say, I need this space for whichever thing, is an important skill to be able to give them.
Oh, absolutely. Because what happens when you don't? They feel like their needs are to come second to other people.
Mm.
That's not what we want to teach them. And I don't know about you, but that's definitely what I was taught growing up. And so then I had trouble speaking up for what I wanted. And so I would then get angry. But what I've learned is no, my needs are important. I do deserve to get them met, whether I go do something to support myself or I bring someone in and I lean on them and we lean on each other, right? When you can exemplify what it truly looks like to love yourself and advocate for yourself while also having harmonious relationships, then you're really teaching those important life skills where you're going to see the ripple effect. You're going to notice that your kids are going to have a much easier time with relationships. They're maybe going to get to leave relationships a lot sooner because they know that, hey, we're just not compatible. It's not about, oh, I need you to care about me. I need you to define my worth, which I don't know about you, but that was definitely my thing. And I've definitely stayed in relationships a little too long because I felt like unless I was in a relationship, then there was something wrong or missing in my life. But really, it was my own self love that was missing.
Yeah. And to demonstrate to kids, right, that in a good marriage, we should be taking care of each other, right? So
Yes.
if there is something that the other person needs, like if I need to make time for my husband to go do something by himself, I should respect that, allow him to find that space and say, I got this time, and he'll get me next time. Um, and I hope that also demonstrates like the importance of relationships and the give and the take, and seeing people's needs, whether it be friends or a significant other in the future or whatever it might be. Well, yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, it makes a huge difference when you nurture the partnership and when you don't, right? If you don't want to get to the point where you end up having the kids leave the house and you look at each other and you're like, I don't even know what to talk to you about. I don't even know how to hang out with you. And you basically feel like strangers who live together, then you've got to get to work. And even if you've gotten to that point where you're like, oh shoot, like yeah, we have spent a lot of time not nurturing our marriage. It's okay. It's okay. Just start small. Start on the friendship level. Let's restore that, right? Spend some time doing something fun. It doesn't have to be like deep conversations all the time. You can build up to that, right? As long as you're taking baby steps. I love what one client said to me. Her goal is to get 1% better every day. If
mhm.
we just like make it small, make it doable, then you're able to really make that change because it all compiles on each other, right? It builds off of each other. And it gets to this point where it's like a snowball. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you gain momentum, right? Like as things like let's say like a snowball is rolling down a hill, you gain momentum. Things get easier as you nurture the relationship, deepen the connection. Then conflict gets easier to handle because you two have this deep sense of trust and respect with each other and love and compassion. So even if you say the wrong thing, even if you don't agree, there's that underlying respect and partnership and connection that you can lean on to help you be more resilient to get through that. So even if you're still learning how to be an effective communicator, it still is better because you have nurtured it. But when you don't, it's kind of easy to demonize each other. And instead of fighting with each other, or instead of fighting for each other, you are fighting against each other. And that's not what we want to do here.
Uh, So we always like to end, and I think this is a great segue by giving everyone a quick action or challenge that they can do to start implementing some of these things, right? And you were just saying it doesn't have to be big. Is there a small challenge you can give our moms that they can go do today to start taking action?
Yeah. So my action for you is actually related to my gift.
Mhm.
So I am gifting a free masterclass. It's called The Number One Conversation Married Couples Need to Have But Aren't. Watch this video. Okay. You can do it with your partner after you do it yourself. In essence, it's going to show you how to build your vision. Because if you don't have a vision, you're not going to have any direction. And you're going to look at this working and be like, what is the point? But when you have that vision, it becomes your North Star. You start to check back on it, on like how to make choices for yourself, how to rearrange your life so that it supports your end goal. Okay. So that's my one action for you is to go watch that video so you can get clear on what your vision is. And then bonus points. If you then have your partner do it too, and you talk about your individual visions and come up with a united vision.
Oh, I love that. Oh, aligning, right, is so, so important. And a lot of times we don't want to speak up for our needs or our wants, just like you were saying earlier. Some people have an easier time in it, but go check out that freebie. Go have that conversation. It is scary, but it is also so, so worth it. So, anything else you want to share with our moms before we wrap up?
Yeah, if you are the type of mom who does struggle with speaking up, I get it. It's tough being vulnerable, it's tough being seen, but at the same time, that is what you're searching for. You want to feel seen and supported. And so you've got to allow your partner to show up for you by being transparent. And yes, it might seem like it is so hard. You're going to get choked up. It's going to be difficult to say. Hang in there. Start small if you want, okay? It gets easier. I was not the kind who was okay with sharing my emotions other than anger. I was not okay getting deep and vulnerable. But now it's like, it's so easy for me. And you're going to find that when you start to get more comfortable with expressing these uncomfortable emotions, your intimacy, your physical intimacy, your emotional intimacy with your partner is only going to get better and better and better because what do we want from our kids? We always want to know what they want, right? When they're whining, they're like, ah, okay, what is it that you need? Do what you're telling them to do. Share what you need. Be honest. It's going to be so much more successful in the long run.
Oh, and when they respond in a way that you weren't expecting with acceptance and kindness and love, right? Especially when you show up vulnerable. That's when the magic happens.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for sharing with us how to strengthen our marriages, especially in parenthood, because it is hard to do all of the things, but so important. Everyone, go do the challenge, go grab her freebie and watch it. Share with us how it went in the Facebook group. And if you have questions, drop them there because we're going to be in there. Remember, it takes a village and come back for more amazing summit speakers.